I'm sure you have been seeing, if you've been on Catholic Instagram or Catholic X or basically anywhere Catholic on social media, I'm sure you've been seeing the news that England is seeing a huge uptick in Catholic converts. This is very exciting, obviously. This is great. But there's even news that there are more Catholics in Gen Z in England than there are Anglicans, which means if that holds, England is going to be Catholic rather than Anglican at some point. Praise God. Praise God. That's incredible. So obviously, England was Catholic long ago before King Henry VIII uh, declared himself to be Pope of the Anglican Church, basically, so that he can annul his marriage and marry his mistress. Not a great reason to start your own church. I'm sure a lot of Anglicans, all four of them, will be in the chat telling me why that's not true or something, but history is history. So let's read some articles about what's going on in England because this is really, really exciting. Okay, so this is Catholic News Agency, and they say there's a surge in adults entering the church in England this Easter, prompted by the internet and tradition. This Easter vigil, the Catholic Church in England is expecting a decade high surge of new entrants into the faith. There is anecdotal evidence of a particular increase in young men, that's good, who say their interest was sparked initially by Catholic apologists on social media and also by the traditional heritage of Catholicism. Yeah, so it makes sense. You know, something that's been around for 2,000 years, the Catholic Church, is a lot more alluring, a lot more interesting, and provides a much greater depth than something that's been around for what? When was the Anglican Church created? Like 1600s. Almost all English dioceses contacted by CNA reported a significant increase in both catechumens and candidates at the rite of election at the start of Lent compared with last year. Many had not seen comparable numbers for a decade. That's incredible. The Diocese of Westminster, which includes much of the capital city, London, said this year it has 252 catechumens and over 250 candidates, making a total of 500 to be received into the Catholic Church at Easter, the most seen since 2018. The adjacent Archdiocese of Southwark, which has a significant evangelization program, saw over 450 adults complete the rite of Christian initiation of adults this year, more than the year before. Such levels have not been seen since Pope Benedict XVI allowed groups of Anglican communities to enter into communion in 2011 through the Apostolic Constitution. So, why is this happening? So, it says tradition in the headline, tradition and online apologetics. Now, not only is the Catholic Church older than the Anglican Church, obviously, by over 1,500 years or so, but the Catholic Church is also not at all given into the woke mentality that has taken over the Anglican Church, at least in large part. So the Anglican Church is where you're now starting to see, at least for a while now, you've been seeing women being ordained as priests. You've been seeing all kinds of like pride masses and things like that coming out of the Anglican Church. Terrible, terrible things, and people are not down with that. Because if they wanted to go to something that resembled the secular world, they would probably just go to the secular world. They don't really need to go to a church for that. So people are looking for a tradition. They're looking for something deeper than what they see in their day-to-day life, deeper than the trends of the current day. And if your church gives into the trends of the current day, then people aren't going to be very fulfilled there. They're going to leave that and go to something that hasn't given into the trends of the day, and that is the Catholic Church. So that's great. Also, I don't know of any online apologists that are arguing for Anglicanism. Like maybe I've come across somebody, but I don't know anybody who's like very big. Meanwhile, Catholic apologetics has some huge names like Trent Horn, obviously, um, Jimmy Akin, like all the Catholic Answers folks. There's Matt Fradd, who is not an apologist necessarily, but he's nonetheless a big part in why people convert oftentimes. There's Lila Rose, who's doing great work for the pro-life cause, who is also part of the reason that I converted, and I'm sure I'm not alone in that. So there's no I don't know of any Anglicans who are in influential positions in the world. Maybe you could say Andrew Clavin from the Daily Wire. I think he's an Anglican, so he's awesome and he has a great show. I've been a longtime fan of his, but he's outnumbered in the public sphere. There's Michael Knowles, there's Matt Walsh. Although the candidates have a broad variety of backgrounds, some trends he has noticed include young men, initially inspired by online US based evangelists and apologists such as Bishop Robert Barron, nice, Father Mike Schmitz, Edward Sri, Trent Horn. This episode is caffeinated by 7 Weeks Coffee. If you click the link in the description or use code SWS at checkout, you will get 10% off your order, you'll be helping out the channel, and you will be funding the pro-life cause. Thank you, 7 Weeks Coffee. Let's get back to the video. So again, people are looking for tradition. They're looking for something deeper than what they have in their secular lives, and they are finding that in the Catholic Church because it hasn't given in to the trends of the day. And also, there are some wonderful representatives of the Catholic Church online who are making very good arguments for why it is the true Church of Jesus Christ. And it's interesting that they're also noticing young men specifically coming in, which makes sense because, as we've seen, at least in America, I'm not sure if it is the same in England, but in America, we've been seeing that young men are becoming increasingly conservative. So they wouldn't want to be in a church that is caving to woke ideologies. So very cool. Here's another article from Catholic News Agency just a couple of days ago. Catholics now outnumber Anglicans among Gen Z in the UK. Not only do Catholics outnumber Anglicans in Gen Z in the UK, but the ratio is 2 to 1. So they say here, a new study from the United Kingdom has found that among members of Gen Z in the UK, Catholics now outnumber Anglicans 2 to 1, part of a pattern observed across all age groups whereby participation in Catholicism has risen in recent years, while Anglicanism has declined. Just that sentence alone is incredible. So this is a trend that they're noticing in the UK among Gen Z, young folks. A report from the Bible Society, a UK charity that translates and distributes the Bible worldwide, found that the practice of Christianity in general is growing in the UK after decades of decline, driven by a growing participation of young adults and young men in particular. So it seems like young men now are becoming more religious. I remember seeing a couple of weeks ago, maybe, or a few weeks ago, that young women are becoming more religious and not young men, but it seems like that's balancing out. I'm not sure. The study, based on YouGov surveys commissioned by the Bible Society, also concluded that many young people are seeking community and belief in God, and that in an age of poor mental health, distraction, and fragmentation wrought by social media, many are interested in prayer and in the Bible. People are rightly realizing that what we have in social media, it's great, it connects people, but it is not the thing that is going to satisfy you ultimately. You need a belief in something transcendent. You need prayer. These are things that just studies have shown correlate with higher levels of mental health. Makes a lot of sense. And it definitely is something that I've experienced as well as somebody who used to struggle with anxiety, panic attacks, and things like that. Once I started praying the rosary and taking my faith seriously, and especially, becoming a Catholic, I haven't had a single panic attack. Haven't really struggled with anxiety. I mean, certain things stress me out, obviously, at times, but it is what it is. The results of this thorough and robust study demonstrate that over the space of only 6 years, there has been a significant growth in the number of people going to church. Christians are practicing their religion more intentionally, rather. More young people are finding faith. More people are reading the Bible. The report's introduction reads. That's great. According to the report, the youngest group studied is now the second most likely group in the UK to attend church, with 16% of 18 to 24-year-olds saying they are monthly churchgoers, compared with 19% of those over age 65. The number of young people going to church is similar to the number of old people going to church. That's awesome. And again, I think it's because it's like, yeah, we've tried the whole secular thing. We've tried abandoning religion, and it sucked. So let's go back to the thing that we abandoned, because once we abandoned that, things weren't very great. We're also seeing this very similar trend in France. So again, from Catholic News Agency, record number of adult baptisms in France shows surge among youth. France's Catholic Church will welcome more than 10,384 adult catechumens at Easter this year, marking a 45% increase from 2024. Reveals the highest numbers ever recorded since the survey began over 20 years ago. And it's mostly young adults, or at least they're the largest segment. Absolutely incredible. And I think, I don't think these articles are speaking to it specifically, but a lot of times these younger people are way more traditional than the older people, which is really interesting. So this is among younger people. I wonder what the stats are for different age groups. Like, is Gen Z becoming more religious and like maybe millennials and Gen X are becoming less religious or something? Like, is there, it doesn't seem to be across the board. Everybody's becoming more religious. It seems like younger people are. C.S. Lewis is the only Anglican I can name. Yeah, I didn't know he was Anglican actually. So Michael says, I'm Gen X and you're right. There's an age gap. Okay. So like there is are you saying that older people are starting to become less religious while younger people are becoming more religious? Particularly notable is the 10-year trajectory. France has witnessed adult baptisms more than doubling since 2015, when only 3,900 adults received the sacrament, compared with this year's 10,391, representing a 160% growth over the decade. Praise God. 2021 study revealed that approximately 17% of adult catechumens in France had previous spiritual experiences outside of Christianity, including Buddhism, esotericism, or animism. I don't know what any of that refers to. Sounds like pagan nonsense. But here's the thing. Now we could get all excited and we can say, oh, look, Catholicism is big again in England and in France. We're winning. But you would also have to ignore a video that Trent Horn released earlier this week, 2 days ago, I think, saying that Protestantism is winning. We're actually losing to Protestants. Now, how can he say that? Why does he say that? What is the data that supports that? Let's check it out.
Sammons at Crisis Magazine wrote an excellent summary of the latest Pew Research Religious Landscape Report, and the findings are brutal for Catholics. Sammons writes the following. Only 19% of Americans self-identify as Catholic, down from 24% in 2007. This is a 20% decrease. By comparison, Protestants decreased by 21%, while religious nuns increased by 81%, and Muslims increased by an astounding 200%, although they still make up a small percentage of the overall population, only 1.2%. Even though the Pew survey headline suggests that the decline in Christianity in this country may have leveled off, it's clear that overall direction is downward. Now let's go into the data a little bit deeper, because at first this makes it sound.
So again, if you didn't catch it, he's talking about US statistics in this video. So this doesn't apply to maybe what we're seeing in England or France, but this, I mean, obviously is not good if America is becoming less Catholic and more Protestant. I mean, it's kind of always been the case, I guess, but it's not not ideal to see things moving in that direction. But yeah, I just wanted to clarify. This is for US, so it doesn't contradict what's going on in the UK and France, but it's still not great.
Like Protestantism is doing worse than Catholicism, but that's not the case. I'm going to pick a few specific religions and denominations covered in the report to show how Catholics especially have been losing ground in the past decade. So among the survey's 35,000 respondents, here were the results. 46% were raised Protestant, 30.2% were raised Catholic, 0.8% were raised Orthodox, 2.1% were raised LDS, or Mormon, and 12.6% were raised without any religion. But of that same group today, only 40% identify as Protestant, 18.9% identify as Catholic, 0.7% identify as Orthodox, 1.5% identify as Mormon, and 29.4% identify as religiously unaffiliated. This means that the biggest gain of adherence were for those who have no religion at all. 20% of people in the sample went from being religious to having no religion.
No, that's crazy. And then he goes on to say that for every one person that converted to Catholicism, 8 people converted out of it, whether that was to Protestantism or non-denominationalism, or non-religious, or some other religion. Catholics are losing a lot more people than they're gaining in America, is the bottom line of this study, which is not good. And it really, I mean, Trent Horn talks about this in the video, but it's like a lot of people are having the opposite experience in their personal life. Like for example, that like I know a lot of people converting into the church. At my parish, we're seeing a huge growth. We're seeing more people in our OCIA, but statistically, nationally, that's not the case. The trend is people are leaving Catholicism more than they're coming in. But so we might put on rose-colored glasses and think, oh well, we're winning or something because of what we see in our personal lives, but that's not the case when we look at the national statistics. Yeah, see, Logan says, these statistics don't match what I'm seeing at all. Not saying they're false, but Catholicism is booming here in Alabama. Lots of converts. Okay, well, that's good. This kind of hurt my feelings when I watched it. I was like, oh man, am I doing something wrong? Am I not, are my videos not convincing enough? Like, is it my fault? Obviously, that's not any specific apologist's fault. But I think what a lot of Protestants are doing that they're doing much better than Catholics is that they're interacting with other religions more. So Catholics, as Trent calls out in this video later on, I recommend going and watching the original Trent Horn video. But Protestants will always, if you go on a Protestant channel, a Protestant apologetics channel, they're going to be arguing against, Mormons, Jehovah's Witnesses, Muslims. They might even be arguing against like Buddhists or atheists, especially. If you go to a Catholic apologetics channel, you're going to see most of the time, like 95% of the time, they're arguing against Protestants. I think we're missing something there. And I think this is something that kind of we've been collectively realizing over time is that there's a lack in Catholics engaging other religions because Catholics are engaging Protestants, which is valuable. I think that should be done. But I think it also reduces the exposure of Catholicism to people of other religions. So if somebody is, let's say, an atheist, and they go to a Christian apologetics channel to look at arguments against atheism, the person they're hearing from is going to be a Protestant most of the time. So let's say the atheist gets convinced, they're going to say, okay, well, maybe I'll go to the Protestant church or something. Or they'll go to the church that sounds like the apologists that they're talking about. Whereas if it was a Catholic saying atheism is wrong, Catholicism is true, here's why, then there might be more converts to Catholicism. I know Trent Horn and others are doing work with atheists as well, but I think there just is not enough of it happening, which is why I've been kind of moving in, not permanently, but I've been arguing more against Muslim apologists lately. Last couple of days, if you've seen my Instagram or my YouTube, my shorts that I've been releasing have all been about refuting Muslim apologists. So check those out if you haven't. But hopefully that I think moving in that direction is good for Catholicism as a whole. One question that needs to be asked as well is if those who leave the faith were ever catechized or bothered to try and learn more. Yeah, I think what we find when we hear from ex-Catholics is that they were not very well catechized because they say things that they're like, I was taught that, you have to earn your salvation. It's like, if you were taught that, then you were taught by somebody who should not have been teaching because that is not what the Catholic Church teaches. But I also don't want to just blame them and be like, well, you just weren't properly catechized. You didn't try hard enough. That's why you fell out of the faith. Because there could have been people around them could have been doing better as well to prevent that. Most converts here are Protestants, but we also live in the Bible Belt, so most people are at least nominally Christian. All right. I find it better to stay focused on your local area and build up from there. A church coordinator says there's quite a number of people quietly returning and focusing on personal growth. Nice. Yeah, another thing that Trent calls out in this video is he says that Protestant churches are much more welcoming to visitors, so they might feel more comfortable coming back or staying at that church. Whereas Catholic churches, it's not that it's cold necessarily. I don't think so, at least not the ones I've been to. But it's definitely like no one comes up to you, like they don't they don't in the middle of the mass say, "Raise your hand if you're a visitor. We're gonna give you a brochure to fill out so we can pray for you." Like we don't do that at Catholic churches, and I'm not saying that I don't think we should do that. Not that specifically, but it could be a little more inviting, perhaps. Like there could be some way that the visitors are connected to somebody at the church so that they can stay in touch or I don't know, let them know about different programs. I don't think those numbers should be a surprise when you think about how many Catholics actually attend weekly mass, while the number of people claiming to be Catholic might be going down. Ah, I see. The total number of people attending mass seems to be increasing, and that's why there has been a sense of optimism in the US. That makes a lot of sense. So it could be that people who were just nominally Catholic in the first place are just dropping the name, but nothing's really changing because they weren't attending mass anyways. Mainline Protestantism has been shrinking tremendously, whereas non-denominationalism is booming. Yeah, that seems to be the case. People don't stick around and talk after mass. Yeah, like there's not I think there could be a better effort made into creating a sense of community so that like after mass, it's not just like, let me get out of here and go home, but it's like, let's stick around and talk. Maybe they could have, I don't know. I've heard of some parishes having like donuts after mass or something, coffee and donuts, so you can just hang out. So there could be things that are done. Yeah, if an atheist has a good experience with a Protestant, then he or she will likely become Protestant. But if they have good experience with the Catholic, then they are more likely to become Catholic. Yeah, it seems like they're just going to go with kind of the first thing that they hear about, which makes sense because you don't necessarily know that there's all of these competing, uh, like Protestant denominations and then the Catholic Church and Orthodoxy. Like you don't know about all that if you're just an atheist hearing about Christianity for the first time. Hospitality is a game changer. A good friend of mine who converted said he chose our parish to finish his conversion because people actually talked to him and helped him. That's great. More of that. I don't know why I'm glowing all of a sudden. My camera's spazzing out. Donuts. Donuts are going to do it. Coffee and donuts, I'm there, dude. Too bad the worship sucks and the theology's bad. But they got donuts, man. To some people, that's all that matters. We need donuts. This whole video is just me trying to convince Catholic parishes to buy donuts because I personally want donuts. The main problem with so-called church growth is that we recruit members mostly from each other, not from atheists or other faiths. Yes. Again, I think there's a place for that because ultimately we could work towards two goals. One of those goals should be to reunite the church. We should work to rejoin those. We should work for unity. That should be one of our top goals. Along with that, our goal should be to convert others in other faiths or with no faith.